And everybody else is here, and mine is super. Um, thank you all for coming out tonight. Start with public comments. I guess you want to make a comment, you can raise your hand. And nobody else here. Okay, so we can start with the budget reviews. There are three budget reviews on the agenda tonight. First one is youth empowerment services. Just in terms of the second one is actually social services, but just in terms of continuity, I could put social services right after youth empowerment services. And I don't see Chris here. Hopefully she'll join us later on for land use.
Yeah, Chris will be here. Yep.
Okay. And so she's okay to.
She's at another meeting right now.
Sure, but she'll be okay if she comes in after.
Yeah.
Then, okay, very good. And so I think Heather's online, so if nothing else, I'll turn it over to you, Heather.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm sorry I can't be there in person with you tonight, and all you're looking at is the dark view of my office at 322. Not feeling really great tonight, so I appreciate being able to come in virtually. Thank you. So the budget overview, Larry, if you want to progress. Next slide, please. Follows the same format all the other departments do. The YFS budget is up just over 29,000 year over year, or 4.6%. The increase is due to contractual salary and benefit increases. Operation expense remains flat. Next slide, please.
Heather, did you want me to do this one?
That would be great.
Okay. So several years ago, the YFS budget was changed to an off-balance sheet, off-budget account. Prior to that, the Youth and Family Services had been managed out of several different funds. Some were on budget, some were off budget. So it was very difficult to get a clear picture of how much money was actually being spent on these efforts. So it was determined that we would make a general fund appropriation to the off-budget account that the Youth and Family Services Department has. And that appropriation is $518,000 and change. We are actually going to project that we're going to expend $675,000. Heather's going to talk about that a little bit more, but the reason why we don't have an appropriation for the full amount of the expenditures is due to the fact that the most significant part of it, of course, is the appropriation, but they also receive grants at Youth and Family Services. And again, these trends have been changing over time. Some years we have more grants than others, such as during COVID. Other years we don't have as much. And they also generate client fees at Youth and Family Services. So these are the three main variables: the general fund appropriation, grants, and client fees that make up the to cover for the expenditures at Youth and Family. Now, there's another line item, and it's called income fund. So for all of you that are new at the end of the fiscal year, since this is an off-budget fund that we manage Youth and Family Services out of, should we have a surplus or a deficit in some cases, we have this other fund that we called the income fund that if it's a surplus, we transfer the leftover funds into the income fund, or if it's a deficit, we bring the account to zero so that we don't have an off-budget fund that is carrying a negative balance. So over the years, that income fund has generated a positive balance of $49,000. And so we're going to use $10,000 of that in order to keep the appropriation reasonable year over year. And Heather, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Leanne. Next slide, Larry. Thank you. So there have been no major changes really in the overall staffing, although we are fully staffed for the first time in a while, but that was a position, a part-time program coordinator position. that is now filled. So I am full-time and the social services coordinator is also full-time and she is 37.5 hours. Full-time licensed clinician at 37.5 and a full-time program coordinator for prevention work, 37.5. The others are part-time, 29 hours, plus 2 hours with ARPA funding for a total of 31. An administrative assistant for 34 hours, another licensed clinician for 28 hours, plus 3 hours with ARPA funding to 31 hour, and the assistant for social services, which is in a different budget for 18 hours. Next slide, please.
Can I back up a
Yes.
little bit for 1 second?
Yes.
I'd like to go back to page 4 for a second. So we made the change with regard to all the funds. I think it is worth having further explanation on it, especially for folks who are just coming on. About 5, 6 years ago, I could be underestimating because time goes by, right? And it could be 8 years ago. Leanne was trying to track all this, and like grant money was going into an account over here, and some other money was going into fees were going into an account over here, and then we had the on budget, and so we just created one fund for all the money to go into. Okay, you guys are going to get X number of dollars in grants. So let's go over some of the other money here. So there's a state grant. I think the DSF grant is a state grant, Heather, right?
Yeah.
And then we've been getting opioid monies in the national settlement from Mackenzie and the Sackler family and all that stuff. And we have, I forget what's in that account, but it's over 6 figures. So Heather, we haven't been spending a lot of that money. Obviously, it needs to be spent on certain things. Heather and maybe one of the other workers can apply some of her time for opioid prevention, and therefore we can use that account to offset some of either Heather's salary or another worker's salary. And Heather gave us that number and said, yes, we'll do $15,000 of work this year that can be taken from that fund. Obviously, Heather, go ahead. Okay.
I was just going to say, in terms of the percentage of my time that you had asked me for that number.
Yep. And then, so you have these, we're calling them grants, and then client fees. Client fees vary. And Heather, maybe later in your slides, but they are hoping to get did you say Medicare approved this year?
Yes.
And with that, they'll be able to generate, they believe, about $90,000 in 2027 for funds. So when we add all that up, then we say, okay, what does the general fund appropriation need to be? And that's how we get that number. I think this is one of the more confusing budgets because of the pieces. So, and it's off budget. So we make an appropriation off budget, and that's where that account sits, the whole thing.
You mentioned state funds. Does any of the money go to?
No,
Okay,
none of the small bottle fund, no.
Okay,
Small bottle funds, just so you know, and we can go over that probably somewhere else. We have about 40 or 50,000 in there. We're doing some food recycling at the Goodwin School. We're doing food recycling at the transfer station. And we're paying those invoices from the small bottles fund. So.
The money that's in the opioid settlement, is that something that, when you mentioned it's probably 6 figures, is that something that the town has an account, or do we have to go to the state?
No, the money has been given to us and we have a designated account for the opioid funds, which, as you can imagine, have to be used for prevention and awareness and those things. Heather, do you know how much money offhand is in that account, or Leanne? Leanne's looking, I can tell.
I know that at present we've spent just over 13,000 this year to date, but I don't know the total amount currently in it.
Yeah,
I'm looking, I'm almost there, but I can't find it, Carl, but it's like, 100, let me look for it while you guys.
About 100,000.
Yeah,
Anyway,
at
well,
least.
we've been getting over the last, 3 years, maybe, we get 10,000, we get 13,000, we get a check for 15,000, and And it's added up to about 100,000 to date.
Why is the number so different each time?
It's how much the settlement is worth against McKinsey, how much the settlement was worth against, name the company, Johnson and Johnson or whatever it was. So it's a class action, so it's our state share, then it's divided amongst the towns, and that's the check we get. All right.
So
Sorry to
we have 100,000 in the opioid fund and 48,000 in the NIPS fund. I heard that mentioned, so I just wanted to pass that along.
So Carl, so I appreciate you going over slide 4, because I was actually gonna ask a question about that. So just to finish off on that, what is the difference between the income fund and client fees?
Well, the income fund was simply surplus funds, so it was an off-budget fund. So one year they may have exceeded their grant total or their counseling, their client fees amount that was budgeted. And it went into an excess fund. And I think over the last 2 or 3 years, we've taken 10,000 here, 12,000 or 15,000. We try not to overuse it because we're using it for an operational expense, so I don't want to over rely on it, but it is there. And so this year we made a decision, an executive decision, to use $10,000 from that income fund, which had about 60,000. Now it's going to have about 50,000 through fiscal 27. Now, if we get more grant money or they exceed their client fees, that fund will be added into that account. Does that answer your question?
It does, right. So one of the anticipation is that you'll get $90,000 in client fees, but
Client
then you
fees.
come in with 110, 20,000.
Would go in there, and if they anyway. And by the way, when Heather, Leanne and I were in the meeting, we were trying to be realistic with that number, and Heather, I don't want to put it on Heather, I mean, if we don't make that number, but we have an application in for Medicare to be Medicare eligible, and Heather really felt that would open up a different income stream.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Carl.
Just does the ARPA hours, do those sunset at some point? For the,
Well, we have to expend them by the end of fiscal 26, the ARPA funds, and I think Heather, correct, and by the way, anything I've said that you want to expound upon, Heather, please do. And with regard to the ARPA funds, I want to say that was more social services than YFS, but I'll leave that to you.
Sure. For youth and family services, though, we had 5 hours, 3 hours for clinical additional hours and 2 hours for prevention programming additional. And that is due to be expended by the end of 2026.
and the fiscal or
Calendar.
Okay, so that's why you still have something in this 26, 27 budget.
Yes.
Okay, so if we look at this a year from now, there won't be any ARPA dollars.
There will not be any ARPA dollars.
This is the last year.
There will
Okay.
not be.
Jane, I saw your hand up. Did you have a question?
Oh, it's Megan, thank you. Yeah, I was just wondering, I mean, you said that you're looking to be Medicare certified. I'm assuming that's to kind of fill the gap of mental health services for older adults. Is that what that's like? Have you had this?
It is.
Need? Yeah.
It is. We have been seeing an increasing amount of senior citizens within the practice, and the estuary did have a licensed social worker for a period of several years. They're trying to fill that position again now, but a few of us have senior citizens on our caseload, so being Medicare approved would certainly be a benefit to folks in town who want those clinical mental health services.
That's great. I definitely know there's a shortage, so that's good to hear.
Thank you. Okay. Next slide. The one after. Thank you. Department accomplishments, and many of you were at this celebration in September when we celebrated the 50th anniversary of the agency. The old Saybrook Youth and Family Services is one of the first ones in the state, having begun in 1975. There's 142 youth and families within the state of Connecticut. We have a legislative mandate to provide the kind of services that we do, but Saybrook has always been very proud of the one that's locally available to our residents. We've been doing some multi-agency projects all around just to share resources, but in this past September, we had a large installation of suicide prevention signage on both sides of the Baldwin Bridge, and partnered with the Department of Transportation as well as Lyme Youth Service Bureau. And we do know that often folks get to a point of despair and go to the bridge, and it has a QR code as well as a listing of mental health resources that they can access immediately. Most folks do have their cell phones on them. And the resultant media coverage of that really helped spread the word. It was also a time to honor 2 Connecticut state troopers who in December of 2023 were able to talk a woman off the Baldwin Bridge where she had gone to end her life. So you may have seen that on the news. We initiated the process with Detective Eric Williams at the OSPD to have a drug take-back box installed there. We were able to utilize opioid funding for that box. There hasn't been one in Saybrook up until this date. The closest ones are on East Lyme and Clinton. And you may be aware of National Drug Take-Back Days, which are in April and October. And because of where we're located between Boston and New York, it's a very high area for the retention or bringing drugs back that might otherwise get into the hands of youth or people who they're not intended for. So the launch date for the Old Saybrook one will be the National Drug Take-Back Day of April 25th. It should be getting installed in the next week or two. The snowstorm has slowed that down a little bit, but it'll be right in the front lobby of the OSPD. We've been focusing on staff development for newer legislative mandates related to youth diversion and school attendance issues. And Lieutenant Stephanie Millardo is working with myself and 2 of our staff to become increased training that's required for that through the State Department of Education and DCF. And we're maintaining the usage of part-time bilingual educators through ARPA funding to facilitate early literacy and social skills building programs. We've been able to increase our youth programming attendance from multilingual families by 10% throughout the past year, which may seem like a small number, but it's been an increase over the year before. So having someone who looks like them and sounds like them has been so important in connecting some of the families to community and school events. Next page, please. Community mobilization advocacy. Our students are always involved in our fundraising efforts for Shoreline Soup Kitchen and Pantry. This was the second year of a new format for the Campaigns and Transition to High School program. It was very successful. We develop and maintain some special population groups, speaking to older citizens in the town who require our services. We are on year 3 of Grandparents Raising Grandchildren group once a month at the estuary. And we're on year 11 for the support group for caregivers and parents of high functioning ASD. We were chosen as the chair for the Valley Shore Collaborative, which is a multi-provider agency group that meets to improve overall operations really from here through Meriden and quite a large swath of the state. So very proud to hold that. And we get a lot of information and shared resources through that process. Next page, please. The Opioid Settlement Fund, as Carl has already spoken to, there are some very specific criteria for the expenditure of any of these allocated funds, and follow that really to the letter. So the OSAC was established to ensure that the proceeds received by the state are allocated appropriately. So, and the part that we focus on within youth and family is to use the resources for prevention education, and harm reduction, infrastructure programs and services. We are part of, we actually facilitate the local prevention council, and a lot of different sectors are represented there. So we get feedback and we invite feedback from the first selectman, the CRAD, Connecticut River Area Health District, the chief of police, Lieutenant Millardo, who's also on the Youth and Family Commission, and local treatment specialists. Next.
I have a quick question on the opioid settlement fund. I mean, there's obviously the use has got to be specific. Is there a time frame in which the funds have to be expended that they could potentially be recouped by the state? And then the second question is, what is our experience in terms of the opioid counseling? Has it been kind of static? Is it increased in the last year or two, or what do you see?
Great questions. There is no end date currently that I'm aware of where these have to be expended. Some communities are going through it at a faster rate because they have a higher rate of opioid use disorder in their residents that's identified. So within our town and at Youth and Family, I'm a licensed alcohol and drug counselor, but I don't see folks for treatment there related to this, but we refer out to local treatment providers. And in terms of youth use and fentanyl overdose, the numbers have actually gone down in the last 2 years by about 2.4%. We don't know if that's because they're not using at all or they've just switched over to different substances. But the fentanyl overdose rate for between the ages of 18 and 24 has gone down slightly.
Thank you, excellent.
So there was an article, I don't know if it was in the Hartford Courant or the Wall Street Journal or where it was, but as you can imagine, this money can be reasonably significant to a community depending on the settlement. And so there's been some really super interesting uses of this money that are really on the edge of allowed, like, hey, we're gonna build a new park because people should be outside doing good things. And, so they're almost using it for infrastructure, and calling it prevention type of, and, I don't know if those folks are gonna get called on the mat or not, but, when I receive the money, when the notification comes to me, I send it over to Heather. And what's awesome for me is even though Heather consults us, I know the money is being used the way it should be used. Because I know how Heather does her job. So, but it's not like that everywhere, I can tell you that.
Thank you. Next slide. I won't go too much into our primary prevention efforts. I did want to share on the middle bullet point there, data from our local student survey of grades 6 through 12 last year. One of the things that we measure that's so important is age of onset or first use. And we did notice that it's right around 7th and 8th grade for most of the self-identified student results here. Gambling at 11 and a half years old, over the counter, which includes cough syrup or things they might get at a convenience store like Delta or Kratom, 12.7. Prescriptions, almost 13 years old. Alcohol and vaping, 13 and a half. The cost of this survey was supported through the Opioid Settlement Fund partially. So that was very helpful. We hadn't had one since 2017. So it was overdue and it provided us with a lot of information about what we're currently looking at. And these trends were consistent with other regional data. So there are no trends within our town that were, marked as urgent in terms of being out of character or out of what might be considered normal within the rest of the state. Next slide, please. So some of the programs and initiatives that we've used the money for locally in 2025 trained folks in the administration, and we also did town employees, but special interest groups, whether it was for senior citizens or even groups within the chamber. The drug take back box was a huge campaign, so we're really happy to have that almost completed. Naloxone and the training for administering it to employees who are willing to was added to Town Hall and Youth and Family Services first aid boxes, and ongoing educational info shared routinely to employees. Excuse me. Environmental strategies include billboard and signage campaigns. We facilitated prevention education training through PD days for the OSPS. We developed training for the estuary on safe disposal and storage of medications, which is really important as a lot of the senior citizens didn't realize that sometimes when they have grandchildren visiting, it may be very easy for kids to get into medication or items that they shouldn't be getting into. And we were able to give them all the disposal lock boxes at no charge to them, which was very appreciated by them. And we updated our treatment and provider resources directory online in both Spanish and English. Next slide, please. Containment process improvements. We're not making any requests for capital expense or building improvement. Very happy with where we are. And The interagency cost sharing, we do that. Youth service bureaus are famous for this anyway because we've just always done that, sharing curriculum, sometimes sharing speakers. Not everybody who lives in Saybrook wants to hear me talking all the time, so I might get invited over to Westbrook, and Westbrook might come over here. We share curriculums, we help each other with training costs, but also within our own town, the police department, Park and Rec, Acton Library, we're always sharing ways to do things better and bring things to our residents at reduced or no cost. We're lifting the residence requirement after discussion with the selectmen for clinical services.
IT.
Where'd you go?
Where'd you go?
Hello?
So, yeah.
I was gonna ask what lift residency requirement is.
Other people from other towns.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah, where she stopped,
Yeah.
what is that?
She came and said, do you mind if someone from Westbrook calls and wants services? I mean, they pay.
Paying, yeah.
I see.
I was like, sure. Um, so,
You know,
let's see. Okay, thank you. Well, that's the end of it anyway, pretty
She's
much.
pretty close.
So she's trying to reconnect.
well, you know, it's really good yet, like, so. It is, it's not limited. It's fine. A couple times we're just froze, and then that.
When I got here, the signal got all crazy until I got in.
Really?
Yeah, it's strange.
Yeah, well, it's just so windy, you know?
Yeah, no, it wasn't windy when I came in, but it was,
Oh,
the signal got weird. And she's right across the town green.
oh, she is?
Yeah.
She's working on it.
Okay.
I was just texting her. She's trying to get back in.
Or at least the operations in the budget, what is that? Is it a share of the?
Electrical, yeah.
Oh, you just allocated out here.
Or that building, yeah. No, not electric. Actually, I put it. Leanne, do they pay their own electric out of that budget? They're their own building.
Yeah, they
Or is
have
that-
their own building, they have, maintenance costs,
Yes.
cleaning costs, all kinds of things that are typical that all the other buildings share, electricity, things like that, so.
Carl, what building is it?
Right next to the fire department.
Oh, okay.
Big house.
The old one out there.
The Kirtland.
Nice Halloween decorations, yes.
Yeah. Um,
But she's gonna be getting through Consoli's presentation as well, I presume?
No, so.
You said earlier that Sue was.
Oh,
So it's
well,
like-
Actually, will be. You know, man.
Sue, are you online?
Where? That is.
Is she? We know she's not.
Can you see Sue online?
She's in attendee right now.
Yeah.
Or we
Okay,
promote.
so I just,
Well, the time,
the
there
thing, see
you
if we
go.
get her promoted. She should be coming up.
It's on mute.
Okay, so now I'm in.
Did you want to switch to Sue?
No, I think Heather's almost done.
Sue,
Hello.
It's headed down.
there.
Coming
There we
on.
go.
Yeah.
Got Heather up there twice.
Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, can you all hear me?
Yeah,
Mhm.
left off at residency requirement.
Thank you. And then what I mentioned earlier was that a consistent area of focus for us is collaborative partnerships within the community, whether it's civic organizations like the Lions and the Exchange Club and the Rotary and the departments within town as well. I already mentioned that we share all the other things. Legislative advocacy. This is not new. We do have Jay Aronson, who is a legislative advocate for us at the state level. But the State Department of Education, related to our largest funding source, has increased the amount of responsibility on youth service bureaus related to youth diversion, what used to be called juvenile diversion teams. And they have required a lot of additional training for us this year, as well as additional structure and memorandum of understanding with school boards related to our process to help address school retention, school attendance issues. So they haven't given us an increase in funding since 2019. And so the math doesn't really add up when they're looking at the increased workload for us, in addition to all the other legislative mandates that we try to meet. So we do meet fairly regularly to talk about that. We had a legislative meeting just last week, and hopefully they'll make some progress on that this coming year. We have an intern training program. I was an instructor at CCSU for 10 years, and Adam Starr, one of my clinicians, currently teaches at the University of New Haven. And we recruit students to provide services at Old Saybrook Youth and Family that meet the requirements of their intern training program, which also allows us free training for some of our staff members to meet their continuing education credits. Next page. So I think you always enjoy seeing some of the pictures, and I think that these ones that were chosen really illustrate some of the intergenerational programming that we do, which is so important, whether it's going to Gladeview, doing things at the estuary, but also within all three schools. And I think that you'll see that we're very active that way, and building relationships with these students is so important. And also speaking with them about prevention education. It's disguised as fun. They don't really know what we're always doing, but we cover a lot of ground and get them involved. Next one, please. I like the one in the middle here. This gentleman in the wheelchair there fell in love with those two girls from the high school, and they visited several times. And we do have younger students who also make cards. Some of the residents at Gladeview don't receive a lot of family visitors, so they really light up when the students come in. And the top middle one is at the Transition to High School program, where we involve senior class member mentors for the freshmen coming into the school in a relationship that we know has shown to provide a benefit to the freshman class throughout the school year as they form a relationship with these older students. Next one, please. And then this is just, we're tooting our own horn here, but the top left, Devin Carney gave us a legislative proclamation for the 50th anniversary. And I want to thank the Board of Selectmen for their support always of all the programming that we do. It's very important that we have that support. And you can see that the one on the bottom left is all of us at Camp Hazen. And in the middle there is the suicide prevention program we did with Connecticut DOT on the Lyme Baldwin Bridge with Lyme Youth Service Bureau. So some of our work, you may see the billboards and signage and not necessarily know that it's us, but we are involved with a lot of different organizations. And often Old Saybrook Youth and Family is kind of the center of a wheel where other groups come together, and then we do the work from here and connect people to the other agencies that they need help from. We have a very small staff, actually 5 or 6 of us, but I think you'll recognize that we cover a lot of ground. So I want to thank you for your time. And I want to go to the last slide, please. Overall, the budget is up 4.6%. General fund appropriation is up 6.1%. The survey data and regional collaboration informs the direction of our programs and prevention education. And again, we work with a regional board and our statewide organization So to reduce kind of redundancy in services, to make sure that we're not all doing different things, it's really a concerted effort to provide quality prevention education within our town and within the state. Current staffing levels are adequate for local need, and youth and family, we're fully staffed currently. And as always, I appreciate your help, and community leadership support is important and appreciated. And our relationship with Carl and over at Town Hall is just, I know a lot of other towns are jealous of the kind of support that Old Saybrook Youth and Family receives. So thank you. Anybody has any questions I can answer?
I just have one. Thank you. Great presentation and great work. I have kids in college now, and I know, your student survey talked about the gambling, and I'm assuming it's online sports gambling, and that's kind of a newer thing. Is that just weaved into your overall prevention curriculum, or what are you guys doing there?
There is some specialty programming for that. And in Old Saybrook, it wasn't identified as a real high need area. It's also the kind of thing that requires a lot of explanation, I think, for folks to understand why it might be a problem. For instance, is bingo at the estuary really a big deal? No, not for people who are of age and can go to that, or the casino. But potentially, the risk involved in betting sets up a precedence for kids to not be able to determine when they might have gone too far. Some of the cases that we know of with younger bettors, they have access to a parent's credit card, for instance, and they may be doing it on the computer and not recognize when they're getting into kind of a slippery slope of a risky area, and getting involved with folks that they don't really know who they are, and they may be over age limits. So the part that we're at right now in Old Saybrook is really around the education piece of, what is problem gambling? We're not talking about adults who can go and buy a scratch off ticket or something like that. We're talking about youth gambling that puts youth in a more precarious, either physical location to take part in these, or in a more precarious economic situation that their parents may not even be aware of. So at the moment, we're doing a lot around education around what does gambling look like? What does problem gambling look like? Does that answer your question? Okay.
Okay. Hi, Heather. It's great to see you. Thank you. And thanks to Sue and Brittany and the whole team for the fantastic work you do. Referring to the ask of the state for more, basically some legislative advocacy. Are you getting everything you need? Like, what would be if there's something we need and we're not getting, is there something like that you can think of now that we need a lot to get more money, or it's just they should pay more of a share of it?
They should. So they increased the workload by a significant percentage in terms of requiring us to attend multi-day trainings and increase the clinical training of my clinical staff, which takes them out of our environment here where they're already providing some services. So sometimes the ask seems a little bit rigorous in terms of no increased funding to support that. And so if I move people out of here to go to a 4-day training, then there's no one here to provide the services here, which leaves a deficit within our school or within our community. So it's also the infrastructure. It requires the director's time and a percentage of my overall administrative time to manage all the new requirements, documentation. And I accept that that's just part of the job, but it has to be in keeping with either more money to support us administratively, or in a position, with another position to specifically do the youth diversion piece.
Okay. Are you getting help from like Devin Carney, Norm Needleman, Martha Marks? Are they advocating specifically for the town of Old Saybrook? Do you know?
Yes. I mean, Devin Carney's always been a great supporter of ours. And then Matt Lesser was on the call last week and is an outspoken supporter of youth service bureaus, and recognizes that as that was shifted out of juvenile court and onto our plate, it didn't really seem, I mean, it's a good fit for us in some ways, but it just kind of came off juvenile probation onto our plate without a lot of recognition that was also going to make our plate extremely heavy.
Okay, thank you. And then, my other question, and this is really because I'm newer. Carl, you could probably answer this, but I wanted to ask you, Heather, only because we've got little kids, we've got a 3 and a 5-year-old, and we've had to go across the bridge to Lyme Youth Services Bureau for a lot of programs
Mhm.
that we can't find in Old Saybrook. I know Parks and Rec does some stuff, but did Old Saybrook ever offer that, like preschool age programs? And if they did, where do you do it? Because I know in your offices, there's not room for that. I just didn't know if it was ever something we had done or whether we'd consider that in the future, particularly as we try to attract young families to the town.
Sure. Sure, it would definitely be something we'd be open to. And I think I just went to Lyme Youth Service Bureau's open house, and they have that beautiful space in the back. That's a whole classroom for that. So yeah, space is something. I think Park and Rec had early childhood programming a long time ago, and Acton Library does a good job now of trying to fill some of those gaps. And then the YMCA over at the Goodwin School. So we're all still having those conversations and trying to figure out how to piece it together to make it happen. But space and staffing resources are certainly some of the considerations.
Okay, I would definitely be supportive of that effort for the parents of young children.
Thank you.
Any questions from the Board of Selectmen for Heather?
Jane, you had your hand up at one point?
Pardon?
Pretty cold out.
Yeah, but I think she's also.
Yeah. So. All right. Jane, you're frozen if you can hear us.
I have a question. So this is more about the grant part of your presentation. So it's also related, I guess it's somewhat related to the last slide, right? So the overall budget went up 4.9%, but the general fund went up 6.1%. And so my take on that is that your grant money was less this year than last year. So the general appropriation had put in more. That's the way I understand it. But coming back to the grant, so 2 questions on that. One is, for example, the opioid 15,000. Is that what you got this year when you gave it all to Heather?
No.
Oh, I see.
No, it's just part of the 100,000 that we have.
I see. Okay. And I guess the other question is, a grant seems to be a big part of what you do. Do you need help writing grants? Are there grants that you like to apply for that you're not writing? Because you guys are stretched.
Sure, I would love that. And we are, identify grants frequently. And yes, I would like help with that. And I also, I had shared with the selectmen that we are in the schools much more than we had been probably even 3 or 4 years ago. And I think it would be appropriate for me to ask for some increased contribution from the school district. And because of some of that shift into the school where we don't bill for clinical services, we've been less available for billing for clinical services at the agency. So it's a natural shift. And currently the school utilizes us quite heavily, and it would be appropriate for me to ask for an increased donation from them.
So this year, the school, why don't we put this in perspective? School was it $12,000?
Yes.
In fiscal 26. And it is being increased a little bit in 27?
No, it was 9 for many years through the former superintendent's time, and went to 12 this past year.
It went to 12, okay.
By request.
And has there been a request to increase it for fiscal 27?
I'm meeting with them next week.
Good, okay.
So that would end up in the general fund appropriation? Is that how it would end up?
It would end up as maybe under the grant or other,
I guess I'm trying to, maybe I'm reading too much into the last slide. I'm just trying to understand the first 2 bullet items of the last slide.
Are we trying to what?
Understand the first 2 bullet items of the last slide, right? So the overall ask is a 4.6 increase. The general fund increase is relative to last year, 6.1%. So it's a high percentage of the general fund relative to the overall act. So the implication is that we're giving more money into this.
We are. Yep, what I don't like to do, and I think Leanne knows this, is would it be easier for me to pull 20,000 from that off budget income fund and make this number 3.1? Yeah, it would be, but what I don't like to do is I don't want this board or the Board of Selectmen in 2 years to be in a position where, wow, we drained the income fund and now we need a $50,000 appropriation because we weren't keeping up with the operational budget request. So, Leanne and Heather and I got together and we said, okay, what is a reasonable collection of revenue to put together to make this budget work? And it was an increase of the general fund appropriation. I don't want to put Heather in a situation where, hey, let's just put 110,000 for revenue that you're gonna generate. I was like, in fact, I think I was the one in the room lobbying for a little less on the revenue for counseling services, but you know, Heather was like, no, I think with the Medicare approval, I think we're gonna be able to do a little bit more. And again, if we miss that number, we miss the number. Well, it'll be fine. We're talking 10, 20,000 again. But I don't want to be in a position where the general fund number needs to take a giant leap in a year or 2 years because we kept relying on the income fund or revenue from counseling services or grants. So yes, it's a larger.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Heather. Any other questions? Did Jane come back?
Thank you.
Oh, no, she may be also down into the Board of Ed meeting as well. So.
Yeah.
Chris, to make it make sense, we're gonna have Sue go next. Is that okay with you?
Yes, Sue should be it's a smaller budget. You're good, right? Okay. Thank you very much.
Sue, can you hear us? I think you're up next.
Okay, we can put the slides up and go straight to the third page. Yep, so this is the budget overview for fiscal year 27. And you can see that the salaries have only gone up minimally. And that's all due to, regular, increases that happen in salaries and benefits. And it's only 2.9%. Benefits is 2.5%. Again, these are standard increases that happen yearly. And you can see that the operations budget has remained the same. And the total budget is then up only 2.4%. So I'm going to be kind of boring. My budget's been very static and has remained that way. And we've been able to get everything done within it. So that's a good thing. We can get to the next slide. So if we're looking at our structure and our staffing and our salaries, you can see that the salary is the largest portion of our budget because our work is service oriented and intensive person oriented. The benefits is only actually representing 7% of the budget. And I have full-time hours of 37 and a half hours. That has remained consistent since I took this job long ago. And part-time assistant hours of 18 have also remained the same and been static for probably the last 5 years. The salary budget increase, again, is very minimal at 2,655, with representing only a 2.9% increase, again, only due to annual salary and benefit increases. We can go to the next slide. Thank you. The department accomplishments, pretty much what we've been doing right along. We've added a few things. But we kind of form the basis of making sure that folks in town have food, have shelter, have clothing, have heating. And we are there for emergencies that come up for these folks. Our operational focus has been mostly on providing we've been a local intake site for several state programs, also federal programs. And we're also trying to do some things also with seniors. Municipal agent for the elderly is kind of an unfunded mandate. So I've tried to incorporate some senior programs, and I've been able to do that with some of our ARPA funding, and I can report that it's been highly successful. We're up to 28 people in our senior strings, which is the picture on the lower left. And we have an art program that we're doing with seniors as well. We also incorporate seniors to actually be volunteers at our food truck. So we're trying to kind of get people involved in the community and connected. And there's research that shows that this can be preventative of dementias, which we encounter increasingly now. We have a very large older population in Old Saybrook, so that's been a little bit of a focus of mine because I want to make sure that those folks are incorporated. We also go over to Gladeview and nursing homes. We played. That's at the estuary where we played for a holiday lunch, and we're going to be back over at Gladeview on February 10th doing kind of a Valentine's Day thing with the folks there. So it's kind of like seniors helping seniors, and it's really been pretty successful. We also, do the usual things with the programs of Warm the Children, participate in the holiday giving program, back to school programs, dental clinics, trying to help people again with heat. And we also try to show them how to grow their own food in the spring. If we can get to the next slide. So the cost containment things are basically, in a nutshell, we work with the state and all state agencies that we can work with. We try to incorporate them into things in programming and things that we're doing. We try to have them come to Old Saybrook, and we've been very successful with that. So whenever a state program or something does arise, I try to get those folks to our town to be able to help the folks directly with those programs. That actually helps with the amount of work we need to do for myself and my part-time assistant, because we can get the state to kind of take over some of that burden also when it's their program. So Workforce Alliance, that's been a really good partnership in helping people to get back to work, helping them with free training to get a better job. And we work with them pretty closely. We've had job fairs. We have not had one this past year. I intend to have one this year. You'll see that we bring in quite a bit in heating assistance dollars. We don't bring that directly in like to our budget, but what that amount is all of the applications that we write for state energy insurance brings that amount of revenue actually into the town to the people that are getting that assistance. And I have had ARPA funding and I'm still using it. And I'm very happy to say my focus on using the ARPA funding has been not to be redundant of the things that we're already doing, but to try to actually help folks who lost jobs, who were underemployed, who had different issues, actually regain their self-efficacy. And I can actually tell you that I've looked at the state numbers, and our numbers in Old Saybrook have in fact gone down. They haven't gone down in 5 years. And I actually don't think they've ever gone down, but that I can ever recall. But I've got about a 5-year track on it, and the numbers are actually on their way down. When I say down, I mean less people on food stamps, less people unemployed, less people that are not housed and that sort of stuff. So pretty happy with that. And that's been my focus. And I really believe that as the ARPA funding wraps up, our numbers are actually at this point looking to be pre-COVID. So I'm pretty proud of that. I think that's a really good thing that we're able to do. That helps the budget overall because that means if I can have utilized that money correctly, we'll be back to a baseline of me not having to ask you for a whole bunch of money as soon as ARPA runs out. And that was definitely my goal to use those funds for. We can go to the next slide. So basically, again, my budget is only up by a very small amount. That's 2.4%. We don't have any major building maintenance projects. Of course, we're in the same building with Heather. And our operating expenses have remained exactly static with no increase. I haven't asked for anything, and I've been able to get stuff done within it. So does anybody have any questions?
Sue, I just wanted to add one thing that I had forgotten to speak to in my presentation, and it applies to you as well, as you're the municipal agent for the elderly. But Sue and I are on call most of the time, and we're part of the emergency management team. And just in the last month, really since December 1st, I've responded to 5 calls for senior citizen residents within the town from the OSPD, who I want to give a shout out to here, because the way that their officers are responding is so appropriate, and not all towns can do that. And sometimes social services, we go into the home, Sue or I, or one of our clinicians, because a senior citizen doesn't know what's available to them within the town, or they've become isolated and aren't connected to anybody that they could feel they can reach out and ask. And if the police get involved at all and then reach out to connect with us, that's part of the work that we both do. I just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Steve, I have a question, Susan. Living through the last week in Saybrook and with the next couple weeks in terms of temperature on the home heating assistant, is that just strictly state funding, or is there any funds raised in any way, shape, or form locally?
So we have 3 sources. Well, there's more than that. So we start with the state funding is through CRT, and that is the LIHEAP, or the Low Income Energy Assistance Program, which is national, and Connecticut gets certain dollars for, and then we write applications for so people can get that. What happens is they get allocations and they get some crisis benefits. Some of that was reduced this year, and I expect that might happen again next year. I'm not sure. And we also have some money in a program that we had from HEAT and that we added ARPA funding to, so that we do have some additional funds still to be able to help those folks. And what I do when someone needs heating help is we start with the state, and then we go to nonprofits like Operation Fuel, and then we go to our heat funds. And the only time that I reverse that order is in a dire emergency, when someone hasn't done those other things and there's no time to do it because they need oil tonight. And then I backtrack and get the other programs going. So we have not actually needed to utilize all of the funds that we have, and I have every expectation we will be fine moving through the following year. And then, yes, we may do some fundraising again on it. We had done fundraising before, and we can do that again.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Sue. As far as the changes to for instance, MSP renewals, SNAP potentially going to quarterly reviews now with the federal government changing their rules. And I don't think that takes effect until 27 or 28. You probably know better than me, but do you anticipate that having an effect on your need for staffing? If you've got to, help somebody every 3 months instead of once every, a lot of these things are passive.
So I'm gonna say yes and no. When COVID started, one of the actually good outcomes of it was that a lot of stuff went online, and folks had to start getting used to doing some of their own applications. So one of the focuses that I've had is, if someone is not elderly, disabled, or in some other way not able to use the computer, we have actually spent time teaching folks to do their own application and how to follow up on it and have their own account within some of these state agencies, which they now can do. So that has freed up a lot of our time. so that I am hopeful as we move into the more labor intensive, reviews happening more often, et cetera, that we won't have as many folks that we need to either teach or that we need to do it for them. So, and when I say do it for them is we never do it for them unless they're totally unable to do it themselves. If someone comes in and they've never done it before, we will show them how to do it. We will make sure they have their own account and show them how to follow up on it. This way they can ask us questions about it, but we're not doing, 2 hours worth of work.
Great.
Anything?
Sue, I have a good question about the ARPA funds. I'm surprised you still have any left. When do they run out?
So they run out the end of 26.
Okay.
And the only reason they haven't run out is because, again, I'm very careful about making sure that we pace the usage of them and make sure that we will have enough to get through the end of the year, which I'm very confident we will.
So because right now you're level funding operation for 18,000. So the assumption then is that next year the operation increase. I mean, you've been level funding operation for almost 3 years in a row now.
Yeah. So our operating expenses have not gone up. What has happened, and you'll see on one of the previous slides, I had grants coming in also. And to a question that was asked earlier, could we use more help with that? Of course. Because we've had the ARPA funding, I've really not kind of diligently gone after any particular grants lately. I can go back and do that, and I intend to, and grants have definitely offset things in previous years, and I haven't had to ask for a whole lot more. And again, I'm getting the numbers down, and with the numbers of folks in need going down, I'll just give you one success story. There was someone who needed to finish their degree in order to get a better paying job. So we helped them finish that degree by paying for the college costs. And that person did get the better paying job. They are now off of state Medicaid, they're off of SNAP, and they are off of their affordable housing. And they're on their way, and we've had more than one success story like that.
Couple things, we have department head meetings monthly, and I remind my department heads always that we have a grant fund that I think George and Megan were part of, and Eric. From a surplus a few years ago, we put $50,000 off budget. And I know Chris has used that fund, I believe, to get grant writers. If any of our department heads see a grant, I don't have the time to do that. If we can find someone to pay to write that grant, we have the money and we've used it. It's really been, it's there, and I know I've reminded all the department heads. So Sue, you don't have to put in the time but you may have to find a grant writer.
Okay.
And that would just be maybe going on a listserv and, hey, who writes grants for your town type of thing. And if you find somebody and it's an hourly rate, we can pay them.
All right, that sounds good.
Just have a quick question and comment. Thanks, Sue. I saw you. Friday, I was at the estuary for the expo event, so I got to see you in the Saybrook Springs, and that was exciting to see. So thanks for that, and the focus on social connection. We were discussing at a previous meeting the elderly benefit, and I was just the tax discount, I guess. So I was just curious. I mean, do we feel like we're reaching everyone we need to reach? I know you've been in your position for a long time and are really connected with the estuary and other groups. Do we think that number is a good number?
What number are you referring to?
Tax abatement?
Yeah.
The tax
is that
abatement?
reaching anyone that would need that tax
So
benefit?
I'm going to say no. What we have to remember is that older folks' incomes have remained pretty much the same. They've only gotten small increases through Social Security or whatnot. Most of our elderly folks, top heavy with women. Women from that era didn't always have a job outside the home as much as the male did. So when the husband dies, it's just the one income coming in. And it is a struggle for a lot of our older folks because they might have been sitting in a house for a very long time and that's now worth, I don't know, $1 million. But they don't have the money for, for upkeep or for the heat. We had an elderly woman last year whose pipes froze because she didn't let us know what was happening, and she actually just shut off a whole bunch of rooms just to try to heat one room, which was sad. So I try to encourage these folks to think about maybe it's time to sell the house, maybe it's time to find something else. But the reality is there is nothing else. Where are they going to go? We don't have enough elderly housing. We don't have enough apartments. And so a lot of them are kind of stuck in a kind of untenable situation. So yes, if we could do something more with tax abatement for these folks, that would be great. And it is difficult for them. I mean, they're heating an entire house, 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, what used to be the family home.
Anything else?
So the ARPA funds, the chairman, Bruce Carlson at the time, did try to tell the folks using ARPA money that we're not looking to create jobs that will continue post ARPA money. Typically, that was the request. And I think most have, Hugh done a good job staying with that. So.
Thank you. That was a goal of mine to be able to use it that way. And it's been really fulfilling to see people actually get off of programs.
Pretty smart. Thank you, Sue.
Yeah, so I mean, thanks to it and Heather too, but I mean, of all the presentations, I always enjoy these presentations from two of you because it does a lot in terms of demonstrating what you guys do for the community. It's very important. So thank you very much. Appreciate this.
Thank you.
Are you saying Chris Costa's presentation?
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Hey, Chris is here in the room.
Only to be followed by outstanding. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, you didn't. I can do it.
You're here, yeah.
Yes.
So, right arrow to go forward, left arrow to go back. That's all we need.
Yeah, I'm just giving you a hard time.
Yes.
Oh. Thank you, Larry.
Used to that.
I switched chairs. That was sinking. So, hello, everybody. Thank you for having me tonight. I'm Chris Costa. I'm the town planner in Old Saybrook. I run the land use department. I've been in the land use department. It was actually 25 years in October, so I can tell you the ins and outs. I have a pretty lengthy presentation. There's a lot of information, so I'm just gonna kind of scroll through it and get started. So the land use department budget is pretty significant with the exception of budget increases related to salaries and benefits. We've been able to maintain that for the past 4 or 5 years that I've been the department head. What we do a little bit of everything. We have people who come to the counter complaining about an abandoned motor vehicle to someone wanting to build a Home Depot. It's the truth. I mean, sometimes you never know what's gonna happen. So we do long-range planning of the town's land with boards and commissions, municipal initiatives, regulations. We assist in town projects, other physical improvements. We assist developers and property owners, whether, as I said, it's you want to build an addition on your house, or you're coming in for a supermarket, you stop and you see us. Part of what we do is we have 8 boards and commissions. We run about 100 evening meetings a year. We have to stay in tune to the laws. So every time there's some change in Hartford, whether it's a housing law, a coastal management law, we have to track all the timelines for public hearings, legal notices, changes to state laws. So there's a lot to it that people don't realize that goes on behind the scenes. And specifically with the regulatory commissions, because you miss a timeline, someone can get an automatic approval of an application. You miss a timeline, it makes the commission's decision appealable over technicalities. So we also work with neighboring towns, the region and the state, on planning initiatives, grants, and we do a little bit of it. So to give you an idea of some of the permits, and I'm sure I forgot something, when you come to visit us in the land use department or for a one-on-one consultation, these are approximately 30 of the permits that were involved. Everything from signs to gravel pits to someone wanting a liquor permit, sign for the state, firearms, aquifer protection, coastal site plans, re-subdivisions, variances. So it all kind of starts with us. In Connecticut, you can't get a building permit without zoning. And in order to get zoning, in some cases, you need to go to the Wetlands Commission, you need a variance, you're going to the Zoning Board of Appeals and a number of the boards and commissions. And as I said, there's probably something we forgot here. A little bit about the commissions directly in our office. The Aquifer Protection Agency, that is probably one of our newer commissions. The state of Connecticut made some laws about 10 or 15 years ago and said every town that had aquifers needed to have an Aquifer Protection Agency to register and monitor the uses at the 2 well fields that we have in Old Saybrook. One is the Saybrook Aquifer, which unfortunately kind of our bad uses like the transfer station are in our aquifer area. But the Holbrook well field, which goes over to the Westbrook line, and that one is in the preserve area. So that one's doing pretty good. So every 5 years, we have to register and take a look at all the uses, and we also regulate the expansion. And feel free to jump in if you have any questions.
Does Connecticut Water have they use any of Old Saybrook as a source of water for their public water system?
These are level 2 aquifers, so I don't believe they do.
Okay.
So these we're protecting water that in the event we do need it, we want to make sure that water quality, so we're not drinking out of the transfer station. I'm sure it's, no, I'm kidding, I think better no drinking, so. So we then have an architecture review board. They're about 20 years new, I'd say. And they were created to assist in design review, assisting anybody from a business with looking at a sign, architecture, in as big as a Home Depot. They look at lighting, landscaping, and they make recommendations to the other boards and commissions saying, you know, maybe you should make those little windows a little bit more proportionate. Or maybe you should consider XYZ, and they kind of help before larger developments get in front of the zoning and other commissions. And they, every 5 years, it used to be annually, they have design excellence awards. So they look at folks that have gotten a project approved, commercial or multifamily, and whoever's gotten the CO within the past 5 years, they make some decisions. If you go upstairs in the hall, you can see the awards that they issue for projects they feel were well done.
Architectural Review Board is advisory to zoning. They're not a regulatory board. One other thing, Chris is the Director of Land Use. Sarah Lyons is the admin in the office. Lynette Wacker is the environmental, what do we call them?
Planning,
Environmental planner. Karen Dooley works in the office.
land use tech.
And land use tech and, any other part-time, Sarah McElwithy a little bit.
Sarah McElwithy's part-time, and then we have clerks for the boards and.
Yeah, so that's the general staff.
So Conservation Commission, they're not a regulatory commission, they're stewards of open spaces, they do open space planning, they'll make recommendations. To the town for pieces of property that should be acquired. They, as well as many of our commissions, support our efforts towards more sustainable practice. Historic District Commission, they started as the North Cove Historic District, however. They have expanded a little bit. They were responsible for the restoration of the ghost sign. And they're a great group. They promote architecture and maintaining, the historic character of the North Cove Historic District. And they have their regulatory commission as well. So they review certificates of appropriateness. And in certain cases, either the building official and I will also go through, I think what's a certificate of exemption, saying, a feature on a structure is like for like, therefore it doesn't impair the integrity. The Planning Commission, that's another regulatory commission, big picture stuff. They review everything from subdivisions, re-subdivision, lot line changes, municipal improvements. So if the town wants to acquire a property or make an improvement to a building, they have what's called an 824 review, and the town, the Board of Selectmen will come in and say, we would like to do this project, and they look at it for consistency for the plan of development. Some of the plans that they're responsible for, and they're important, the plan of conservation and development, that is our 10-year plan for the town, big picture. You need to have your plan of development in place and updated every 10 years. Towns that don't have it, makes you ineligible for grant funding, I'm sorry. Then we have the natural hazard mitigation plan, which is a 5-year plan for the town. The state requires us to update that every 5 years. That one is another one. If we don't have an updated natural hazard mitigation plan, then you're ineligible for certain types of grant funding. So planning has also been involved over the years in sidewalk planning, initially with Mariners Way. There's so many different plans we've worked on, but it's a big commission. Inland Wetlands, another regulatory commission. They issue permits for anything within 100 feet of an inland wetland or a water course. Inland wetlands are designated by soil type. They're freshwater wetlands, and they're usually identified, not by soil, but also you can see some of the vegetation. The Wetland Commission also issues violations. So if someone's filling a wetland, doing something without permits, they are responsible to get that person in for a permit, and then typically there's some type of remediation action. Am I going too fast or?
No, pretty good.
The Zoning Commission, another regulatory commission. They regulate all types of land uses. We update regulations all the time, and we see everything. It could be a house, it could be an affordable housing complex, it could be a Home Depot. I also serve as a zoning enforcement officer, and I'm charged with interpreting the regulations as well as enforcement of the regulations. So when someone's putting an addition on without a permit, or you have someone living in the basement of a commercial building, those are things that we enforce. And that's part of my job to do that. I will say that Sue Consoli and, Heather, we do interact here and there when you find someone living where they're not supposed to live, and their jobs they're a lot of work and they see a lot of things, but they're great at what they do. So the Zoning Board of Appeals is another regulatory commission that is charged with giving relief of the zoning regulations or variance of the zoning regulation under exceptional circumstances where there's an exceptional difficulty or unusual hardship relating to the land. So if you're on a corner lot and you have 2 street line setbacks and all the other houses only have 1 street line setback, it makes it a little different, and the board may grant a variance. They're also in charge of variances of the town floodplain management ordinance. So if a decision's made as far as an appeal, so if our floodplain manager, which I'm one of the deputies, if we make a decision and a property owner disagrees, they can appeal to the ZBA, but there's also circumstances where you may not want to follow the rules exactly for, say, a flood application for a marina. And you're not going to lift the boat 10 feet in the air from getting it into the water. There's things that are just not practical. So that's very rare that those are encouraged. And so we've got other commission. So in addition to the 8 land use commissions that I've discussed, we support the Board of Selectmen, the Economic Development Commission, the Housing Task Force. I just left the Mariners Way Committee, the Tree Committee, other town departments for permitting. You never know where you'll find it. So it could be at Parks and Rec, it could be at the Board of Finance. So we talked a little bit about the commissions. These are some of our most recent plans that we have updated and were adopted. And I talked a little planet conservation, hazard mitigation. We took on another initiative, Green Old Saybrook, which is a community tree and shrub planting guide. Sustainable Connecticut, I think most of you are familiar. We started this 5 years ago, was our first designation. And in 2024, the town was certified as gold, and we were also a climate lead. So what we do through the land use department is we take a look at what everybody's doing. So youth and family could have a great program that qualifies. So we tally all of that into our renewal, and there's some opportunity for funding and so forth by having the designation. We completed our first affordable housing plan in 2021. And then right now, and what I'm gonna get into is a little bit of grant stuff. We also applied for grants. I actually work with 2 great grant writers. They don't do all grants, so they're not gonna do something for youth and family. But if it's about sea level rise or some other topics that may be of interest, so I actually made application to the Department of Housing. It started with a discussion about a flyer. And so I said, oh, let's call the Department of Housing, and almost $100,000 later, we have a study to look at Main Street and the area by the train station to see why people aren't taking advantage of our mixed use regulations. So we're not putting apartments in. Why? Is it the soils? Is it the parking? Is it, so we've just started that. And it's kind of interesting because some of the property owners we've discussed have said, I just don't want to mix retail and residential. I want everybody to be retail. It's easy. They're not complaining about each other. So, we're learning a lot. So we're looking at soils, we're looking at the parking. We just had parking studies done, need some counters out in December. Then we opted in, the Board of Selectmen opted into the Connecticut Municipal Redevelopment Authority. And in November, we were told that we will be receiving money to look at housing, not just affordable housing within the train station area. This is a little bit interesting because the 15 towns that were granted the award didn't have anything like what we've got going on Main Street. So they all have the same study that's going to occur in the project area. But because we've gotten the money from the Department of Housing and we have a study with overlaps, so we're going to work with them to determine how not to duplicate efforts and to maybe move this project a little bit further along and come up with some.
So some people who may be hesitant to have mixed use may not be as hesitant if we can offer dollars. And it's as simple as that. And so we can say, hey, the soils are really good over here. If you put a second story on, or if you create 2 small apartments, there might be money available. And of course, the town has put some money aside for affordable housing too. So we might be able to truly incent some behavioral changes. That I think is a little bit of the goal, in addition to some very aspirational ideas that were floated, like building a bridge that would completely go over the Amtrak. You know, that's pie in the sky a little bit, but I will tell you that when we met with the state, I can have that conversation with Amtrak, and I'll have it till I go to the grave, and nothing will happen. But with some Connecticut pull, and some funding, and saying there's great opportunity, our person from the state of Connecticut was encouraging us, hey, if the governor signs off on this, you might get attention, you know? So it was that kind of conversation, and that would really, I think, open up some opportunity over on Lower Road and things. Anyway, I'm digressing a little bit, but that is a little bit of what these last 2 bullet points on page 8 are, and how they interact to some possible future development that Chris and I have been, Chris very much so, me less or so, but very involved in. A lot of conversations.
And yeah, what we do too is we're not just sitting in the town hall in Old Saybrook. We have relationships with the state, zoning organizations and so forth. So there's a lot of networking, but we find out and learn new laws, learn about these grants. So it's interesting. It's fun. Sometimes it's too much, but it's like anything. Some other initiatives, the Foreshore Resiliency Plan, is a plan that we completed with our partners, Fenwick, Westbrook, and Clinton. What we found is whenever we're looking to apply for funding, the more we partner, people like to see that we're looking beyond the town line or the property line. And it may not be a statewide or regional effort, but working together has been successful for the town in getting grants. So that was the first plan, actually our first resiliency plan. We got a $200,000 grant that was probably 15 years ago. We're a little bit ahead of some of the other towns with that planning. And now we're really at a phase where I think there's a push for some implementation. So we just recently applied or I did last month, and 2023, we were granted Great Hammock Beach. Actually going to put their application together for a grant, and they said, will the town help us? And they went to Carl to do a feasibility study about the marsh over by on the back river. So there's a bridge that goes over Plum Bank, and there's this swirling water, and the marsh is dying, and the boat, the pilings, you can move them with your hands.
Beach, those houses over there, I mean, watch the tide going out sometime.
Yeah.
It rushes from the marsh area through a narrow bridge, and it's just eating away at that over there. So
And there, people go on their kayak, all of a sudden they're getting pushed to the bridge. It's amazing, what nature can do, and things are changing. So last month we applied to DEEP for their Long Island Sun Ecosystems grant. That grant, if funded, would be $454,333. There is no match. They don't come along all the time, but we are able, like the Department of Housing, to find grants without a match. And the hope is if we can get this grant, we can get that project 90% funded. And then the next step, maybe some partial DEP permitting or DEP, sorry, I'm dating myself. And we'll see if we can move that project along. Another big one, that the Board of Finance, was involved with and supported is that we've got a grant from Chapman Beach in Westbrook, our partner again, to Indiantown, looking at coastal resilience and flooding. That's underway. We've had deployments of tide gauges. There's been folks out there looking at the whole drainage system behind the former Benny's all the way to the Chalker Beach tide gate. Wrote about ecological studies. It goes on and on and on. I'm kind of giving you the Cliff Notes version. So that's in progress. We were going to have an outreach session. We had scheduled it in January. But we're gonna push it off because I think it'd be more interesting for the public to actually see some of the results. And you have these studies and things and it's like, oh, well, this is what we're doing. And everybody's like, well, the so what factor? So what does it mean? What is it? So we're hoping we'll have a little bit of the modeling in place and some more information. And then regional plans. We're involved with the region. We partner with them on a number of projects. They support us in many of our projects, but we participate in their state streets program, the SS4 regional housing thrive, which was a TOD study. Got cut short from the grant funding being removed, but it still came out to be a great plan, regional housing transportation plan, and so kind of the conclusion with the land use department is really our main budget increases salaries. I think we do a pretty good job at going after grants. Carl does always mention the grant fund that was created, but we've also been pretty successful at getting grants to write grants, specifically resiliency grants, so we don't even have to touch that funding. So we've gotten, I think, 3 from Sea Grant to write those grants. So that's been great. And the only thing, there's a little bit of a slight increase in our legal budgets. But in my 5 years, we haven't asked for anything as far as increases with, consultants and things like that. And,
A little bit for consultants.
but it's gone up. And we actually, for Karen's position.
Yeah.
But we try to keep it as
So Chris,
stable.
I probably talked to Chris more than Leanne first, and then Chris. I find Chris is a pretty frequent flyer down in the office, but I think between the two of us, or maybe even more so on Chris's part, she hears the buzz, she sees it in the land use boards, all the meetings they have. And so we try to really share a lot of information. One thing I'll say about Chris, very dedicated, of course, but here to help. When there's a problem, like, a lot of people, she's a CEO, so she's the enforcement officer, so she can be the bad guy. But I will tell you that in terms of thinking outside the box, she's probably the one I turn to the most. Very good with ideas, very good with creative thinking. And I know she does that when people go to the land use office and they have a problem. She's looking for a solution. And we really try to get people in the door early and say, if you're looking to do this, these are your hurdles. Maybe if you do it this way, and that comes from her. She's always looking to try to help people in the beginning so that it doesn't become a problem later on. It doesn't always work out. But I see it, I get people love her and hate her. I will say that.
Very true.
And then the ones who hate her love her like the next day because she came up with this. I've seen it with so many residents, developers, and then like, she's amazing. And I'm like, which is it? So a fount of information, a lot of institutional knowledge, and and she's probably underselling herself a little bit. I'll sell her. And the state level, one of the experts that people turn to for zoning laws and ideas and floodplain and all that stuff. And Chris is right up there at the state level, so we're lucky to have her actually, so.
Thank you, Chris.
That's my pitch. And and it, these presentations, obviously I see a lot of this information year round. But I love in some respects when they come to the Board of Finance because you guys get to see what everybody's doing and it's a small town. There's a lot going on. And we have such quality people. We really do. We have quality people in our departments, and I feel very fortunate because obviously, as the CEO of the town, I think that good people reflect well on me, and I'm lucky to have them. Like I said about Leanne last week, and Chris and Heather, Sue. Anyway.
Thanks, Carl.
Well said. The operations budget, does that pay for like legal notices or what's?
Yes. Yeah, legal notice is actually something that, I hope that they make it disappear because the cost to the town to run all these ads. So every time, like I'm the executive board of CASI of the Connecticut Association of Zoning Officers, and there's so many of us, we keep trying to go through. And you should get that requirement removed. And how many people get the newspaper at their door?
Yeah.
Right.
So, I know you've asked this question a few times. Why don't we get, Leanne, if you could just get a breakout of some of the operational expenses for not only land use, but maybe for youth and family services, just to give a better idea as to what that line item is, and maybe email it.
Okay.
Yeah, not now.
All right.
Yeah, that'd be
Just
good.
kind of-
This is the first time through the budget, so.
That way. Yeah, legal notices, I sit on the board for both Connecticut Council of Small Towns and CCM. And I will tell you, for the last 10 years, we've been trying to get legal notices, but the newspaper industry, they live on it. And so they've been really fighting that. We've just been trying to say, can we just put these online? Because that's where people are going for information with push notification. I mean, you sign up and you get all the notifications. I mean, that reaches way more people than the newspaper. So there was a case, and you're going to be able to fill in the blanks with everything. Fenwick, the borough of Fenwick they have their own zoning. They tried to pass a regulation to not allow houses be rented more than 5 times a year, and not less. It has to be for not less than 2 weeks, for an example. And they published it in the Middletown Press, and someone who didn't want that regulation sued the borough of Fenwick and said 0 people in Fenwick subscribe to the Middletown Press. The Middletown Press circulation is like, 50 in the town of Old Saybrook in general, and saying it was not adequate notice, therefore it's defective and the regulation should fail. But it went all the way to the Connecticut Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said it was adequate notice. Their newspapers are newspapers. Any person in Fenwick would have the right to go into the Henny Penny or the River Mart and get a Middletown Press if they so desired and were interested. They can get the Middletown Press as long as they can get it adequate notice. So I turned to Georgia Ann and I said, no more Hartford Current. We'll do the Middletown Press. When we can't do the Harbor News, which is the least costly option, we'll do the Middletown Press. Occasionally, I might do the Hartford Current if I feel I really should. But legal notice is a big deal. And CCM every year, every session, tries to get that eliminated. And I don't know that I'll see it eliminated at any time. But I think the state, by the way, for themselves, they do not have to advertise everything. I believe the state is allowed to do it online. I'm pretty sure about that.
But
Anyway,
that's-
we're digressing.
But that's an example of some of the details is, you can have a commission make the most defensible decision to do it. Why is it in the Middletown Press? And you get a feel. And it's keeping up on laws, and the boards and commissions all have different enabling statutes, different laws and so forth. So it's a lot more complicated than somebody walking up and saying, hi, I need a variance for this.
Question, and congratulations, 25 years, you said?
October, yes.
I thought I knew a little about most of it, but knowing the level of, various departments, between agencies, boards and commissions. Kind of went to school, pretty cool. I didn't realize the extent, so, but my two questions. One, now if somebody comes in either plans or permits, that becomes public record once that is approved, correct?
It's public record pretty much as soon as.
Through
it's
the
set.
application.
So someone can come in and drop this off and we say it's here and it's available for you to review in the file.
So for like a property that I know is, kind of big commercial space, the old Benny's property, how do we communicate to town residents in that? Is that just basically, you're up to your own, or we're trying to
Well,
promote?
first of all, we need an application.
Okay.
Second, once the application is received, all of our, you can subscribe, on the website to they do have a wetlands approval, but you can subscribe to the, boards and commission agendas. So if you're interested in wetlands or aquifer, so you'll get an email alert. Here's the latest zoning agenda. It's in the newspaper. It's posted on the doors. It's posted on the town clerk, Facebook, and all my social media friends. They love good stories. So you'll see them. They love the good and the bad, Chris, too. You'll see that on there. Word gets around, and I mean, it is advertised and it's public information.
That's great.
Everything is public.
Mhm.
That's great.
There's
Thank
very
you.
little that is public.
So, another thing too, on our website, so if you go to a board and commission and say you hear that the Home Depot is coming in and we have a live application, you can go on under news and announcements on the right, click on that, and whatever's coming in for the next month, you can click on it. We're not required to have it there by law, but you can go there and look from your home. You can look at a site plan, you can look at the engineer's report, and we do that as long as that application is live.
That's pretty cool. Thank you.
And the staffing of the commissions, because obviously there's a huge amount of evening work here. Is it you plus some of the folks who work in your office?
So it's, Lynette and I attend the meetings. We don't attend every meeting. Obviously, that would be impossible. But we try to make sure our commission members and our chairman have training, so that they can run the meeting themselves. There are many things you don't have to have a staff person at every meeting. We have very skilled chairmen. Obviously, if it's something very controversial, I'm at almost every zoning meeting, planning meetings. Lynette's at the wetlands meetings, historic district, conservation, but we don't need to be in every single. But
You're at 90% of them, probably. No, less?
a lot of them, yes.
Yeah. They're at a lot.
We're at a lot of them.
Okay, so that's
So the fund, I think I have 8.
okay. So that's in the salaries account,
Yes.
the people who staff the meetings are in salary. There's not like a consultant who staffs the meetings for you or anything like that.
So the other thing too, just so when we have an application come in, when we have peer reviews, so we have an ordinance, I forget what it's called now, but we call it ordinance 71. So someone comes in with a highly technical application and we don't have an in-house engineer or a lawyer in our office or a landscape architect, we can go through, send this, the review to our consultant. They go through, they take a look at the application. They say, how many meetings do you think I need to attend? What do you think for the review? They send us an estimate. We compile those estimates. We take that amount, we multiply it by 150%, and we ask the applicant to pay for that prior to the opening of the public hearing. So years ago, when the preserve was proposed as a golf course, I think we had like $220,000 of, it was ridiculous, you know what I mean, how much in fees, because we had, you know, golf course designers, wetlands experts, I mean, it was such a large
So
application.
this ordinance 71 covers a lot of the review of technical applications.
So that also kind of helps to offset costs.
It's critical.
Yeah.
The budget would be a different budget. Land use budget would be different.
Way different.
I'd say ordinance 71 fees, 100,000 a year.
Easy.
Yeah.
Good question about me. I found the town initiatives, I think they're very exciting. Especially like the back road one. I mean, how does the public find out its progress? And I mean, like this grant for $450,000, how does the public know whether it's being funded or not?
So typically what'll happen is if we do get grant funding, like the Department of Housing, we go through, we put an article in Saybrook events. A lot of times we obviously tell the boards and commissions. Carl usually will say something, and, you know, whether it's in the Selectmen's corner, you know, and so forth. Obviously, the folks in the neighborhoods, you know, we notify them because it affects them, and they're pretty excited about it. So we have a good outreach. We've good outreach. We're pretty transparent. I talked to, you know, the neighborhood associations, the beach association. You can ask Carl how many folks are in and out of my office and his office from, you know, everything from why is that in the marsh, or what are we doing about this, or what? So we're good at
Specifically for that one, when would you find out about that $450,000
a
grant?
few months.
Few months. Because I live just next door to that bridge. It's quite an eddy.
Oh, that's right. You're right there.
Yes.
Right there.
That's right.
Yeah, right there. It's
Yeah,
So
it's
actually-
something to see, isn't
it's
it?
amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
The first time I went out, Carl had a piece somewhere. He said, "Can you go take a look at it?" It was December. It was like freezing cold. And I'm looking, I'm like, what is going on? So yeah, the Great Hammock Beach Associations, they know it's almost every neighborhood beach association. There's someone who's kind of their resiliency person, you know, so that I'm in contact with. But typically, yeah, the beach associations, they'll know, and if we go forward, we obviously would need to have permission from them to go on their property and so forth. But this was something that was brought forward by Great Hammock initially.
Sounds like George already gave you permission to go on his.
Still need it in writing if the consultants.
It's on the record.
Yeah.
very good. Thank you very much. Any other questions?
Okay.
Thank you, Craig. Good job.
Thank you.
There more. Yes. I'm done with this. No.
Thank you.
Nobody told me it was gonna put up today. I didn't see.
I know, I didn't see that either.
That's the find out.
It
Thank
doesn't
you.
snow Sunday either.
Just to finish this up, so Selectmen's report?
Yeah, so, I didn't know how late we were gonna go, so I don't have much, just, storms. You seem to be hitting Sunday storms, which is double time. Yeah, for all the workers and,
Did a great job, though.
so, yeah, those guys, listen, it's not anything, you know, we were talking about how they're down a couple, I mean, I can't imagine the job or plowing snow through the night, just,
Poor girl.
but, they do it, they sign up for it, they get paid double time on Sunday over 1.5 times if they're working beyond their regularly staffed hours. Other than that, so they finished on this storm and then they went home at 3:30, but they came back at 8 p.m. last night to move snow up Main Street.
Yeah. We saw
Yeah,
that.
I saw it last
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're gonna continue chipping away at it. Last night,
Where do they put that up at the leaf
Water? Up in the water.
yes.
It melts. Yeah.
And a lot of snow up there right now, but and there's still a lot of snow on Main Street. Today, we don't have a machine that is the width of sidewalks. So we did clear some of the sidewalks in and around downtown. So that kids can walk to school, not that, I mean, it's so cold out, I don't know that people are walking to school, but people were pretty good with their sidewalks. It's never perfect. But we had Larry Bonin has a little, former public works director, has a little track loader, and he cleared a lot of the sidewalks going up to Route 1, I think. I was out there. I did from my property all the way to the Acton Library. And from there, a lot of people shoveled, but Larry filled in the missing pieces today. We're gonna start getting some other stuff on Main Street. I got a comment last night about dig out the crosswalks.
Oh, that's from my wife.
Oh, that was your wife. It's like, wow, it's been like 16 hours since she had to snow. So I did mention that, no, I mentioned it's true though. I mentioned it to Bill Claffey today. And we're just gonna get to it.
Yeah.
We'll get to it. But
It's irregular, you know, some people do a phenomenal job and then some people don't touch it.
but the crosswalks on Main Street, we're gonna get to.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they were talking about a storm next week, but it's starting to look a little less so. Let's hope. I mean, a weekend off would be good. Obviously, next Monday is the public hearing. So I just want you to know how that's gonna work on the Duffy Pavilion, Knock and Dine property. So there's gonna be a public hearing. Subsequent to that, when that adjourns, there'll be a town meeting which has one line item on it, but no action is to be taken on that line item. It adjourns automatically to referendum. So the discussion part of the in the public hearing. Today, talking out of school a little bit, but we have over 100 in the state of Connecticut public safety answering points, PSAPs, they call them, 911 call centers. 100 for 169 towns and 2 tribal nations. I'm exaggerating, but like California has 6. Pennsylvania has 5, West Virginia, and we have 100. So when I first got elected in 2011, shortly thereafter, there was a report presented called the Kimball Report, I remember. And I remember sitting here with the former chief of fire and chief of police. And they're like, that's the most ridiculous, you can't consolidate 911 centers. People won't get the service that they're getting now. Fire chiefs, police chiefs they were protecting their turf a little bit. They like the 911 call centers in their town, under their control, maybe understandably. That failed. 5 years later, kind of resurfaced a little bit, never went anywhere. Well, last year, the legislature was going to start passing laws on they want to force consolidation. They want consolidation of these PSAPs, and no bill was passed, but they did form a task force. And I am the Council of Small Towns representative. We had our first meeting today. The basic issues are our dispatchers are unionized. Okay, so when you consolidate 2 or 3, you have to deal with union issues, pay issues, seniority issues, losing your job issues, which obviously you try to have no one lose their job. That's one issue. Other issue is dark police stations, dark. And what I mean by that is no dispatcher, cops are on the road at 2 a.m. who's in the police station. Well, one way to handle that is you walk into the police station and that first area where the dispatchers are, there's a phone. Pick up the phone. That's like a 911 call, goes to wherever the dispatch center is. So that's one solution. The other problem you might have is you're holding someone who's been arrested They might have been arrested at 7 p.m. You might have to take them to court the next day. You might have to hold them overnight. You can't have a dark station. You gotta have someone there. For those events, you would have someone there, or you can transport them to a neighboring police department if you had that kind of agreement. So there's various issues. I think there's been a movement in this direction. I think folks are a little less opposed to it. I'm not saying we are doing it, okay? And even if I proposed it today for Old Saybrook and Chief Onofrio was totally on board, it would probably take 3 years, okay, to actually do this. But I think it's super interesting because no one can tell me we can't do this. It's just with GIS location, the way GIS satellites work, and you can pinpoint this, right now. So, I don't think there's any concern that a dispatch station in Clinton, Madison, East Lyme, Middletown can't provide adequate service to an Old Saybrook resident. So we had our first meeting today. It was good. There were a couple of police chiefs on there who had just recently gone through consolidation. So we're gonna just try to have further conversations and maybe make some recommendations to the legislature. In the meantime, I don't know that there's any appetite for it. I volunteered to be on this commission because I love this issue. No one can tell me it can't be done. We shouldn't have 104. We shouldn't. That means having your own communications tower, all your own equipment. And I'm not saying we shouldn't have it, but there shouldn't be 104. Okay. And we are in need soon of an upgrade. So we need to start looking at this, and are we going to remain a standalone? There's incentive money. If you're a regional, you get money. If you're not a regional, you don't get money. So I'm probably going to get in trouble for talking about it publicly because trust me, it will immediately get out. And we're in dispatcher negotiations and they're going to say, oh, you want to consolidate? No, I'm sitting on a working group statewide because the legislature may make recommendations and I think I want to be a part of it. That's all. So that is why I'm on the working group.
I think you just answered my question. Negotiations for their contract are still ongoing.
We've selected arbitrators, and if anybody would like to meet with council, I probably can't meet with you guys to do this, but if Pat McHale, maybe we can have, I can talk to Pat and we can have some sort of, he can figure out whether we can have a confidential meeting. We can identify the issues and you can maybe give me some direction if you feel that's appropriate. But I'm happy, we are picking arbitrators at this point. The first time this is my 15th year, first time we've ever gotten this far in negotiations. So I've always tried to settle a contract, always. But I don't want to highlight the issues right now just because I'm not trying to pick a public fight with our dispatchers.
At what point does the arbitration cost the contract cost?
So that, of course, that is a consideration, okay? And that is always a consideration when you're talking about 0.25% of, so I'm aware of that issue. Okay. But, if you're interested and you really want to know, hey, Carl, this is BS, I want to know. I'm happy to loop you in and if Pat says it's okay. All right.
Now the administration costs are split 50-50.
They pay for arbitrators and then you split the cost of the neutral arbitrator. And and then you pay for your lawyers and that's briefing, witnesses. This is not a massive arbitration though. It's just not because I don't think there's a million issues here. I mean, the issues, so that's what I'll say about it. It may not do it right away. Well, there's always opportunity to settle, always. So I don't mean, but I got to a point where I'm like, I feel like my hand is forced. All right?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My door is always open. If anybody has any budget questions on anything you've heard, Leanne and I, happy to have a 15, 20, 30-minute conversation for anybody who's been around the block or not been around the block. But we'll see you tomorrow. Anyway.
Just quickly, if you can, public comments, so if there anybody left online? Nope. Thank you. Ones from board members? Nope. Since it's a joint meeting, comments from both myself and Carl, I have nothing to add. Thank you very much for coming out tonight and tomorrow night and Thursday night and last night.
Next Monday.
Next Monday, next day. Yeah.
Conversation, so.
Well, they're very good. They're
We can't sleep in the basement, we know that. So we can't sleep in the basement, we know that.
No.
To her earlier, sleeping in the basement.
Yeah,
But we know where to get help.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Night, everybody.
Exactly.